Now is it better? I can't tell the difference. Okay, so my advisor is Dr. Tim Pillar, and besides doing research, I'm also a couple and family therapist in training, and I was a licensed mental health therapist back in New York. So today I'll be presenting paternal impact on children's psychosocial adjustment in Chinese immigrant families. And for today's purpose, because we have a very limited time here, so my work will be focusing on the use of theories. Okay, so here's a brief agenda, and hopefully I get to go through all 5 areas that I listed. And so I guess, yeah, I prepared a little bit background information, and go to the next slide. Yeah, but I think for everybody who's attending this conference, I think this kind of speaks for themselves already. So why is Chinese immigrant our important population to study? Not only because I'm from China originally, but also Chinese immigrant population is a very large population both in the US and in Canada. And it has been growing very fast since 1980s, and it grows 7-fold within the last 40 years. And Chinese is the 3rd largest foreign-born group in the US right now, and it composes 5.5 of all foreign-born population within the US. Similar trend is seen in Canada as well, and according to Statistics Canada and their prediction back to 2018, by 2031, there will be more than half foreign-born population within Canada will be born in Asia, and Chinese will be among the largest groups. Yeah. So, however, there's a large Chinese immigrant population, but doesn't mean there's a lot of research about it, and especially for fathers, I think in general, I think a lot of scholars have mentioned previously are underrepresented in research, and especially Chinese immigrant fathers. And also Day and Lamb, Michael Lamb is an icon within the fatherhood research, and they have stated there's no single overarching theory of fatherhood back in 2004, and right now there is still no overarching theory about fatherhood. So that's another argument why it's important to talk about fathers first, Chinese immigrant fathers, and fatherhood overall. Also, I did a quick search, and I'm not sure if you can see the numbers clearly. If you search Chinese immigrant fathers, the number is like almost half of Chinese immigrant mothers if you do the comparison. If you just search fathers versus mothers, I think it's even more ridiculous. It's 1 to 4, the ratio. Yeah, just to give everybody a quick sense of like how by number, how it's looking within the research field. And in a lot of studies, actually, their title will be parent-child relationship. Actually, they only included mothers for their participants. So it's actually mother-child relationship research. Yeah. So yeah, and for the first focus of today, why it's important to talk about theory. I think theory is oftentimes overlooked, like within research, and you will see like in my results there that not all studies cite or talk about theories within their like background or research methods. And the theories are so important. They provide the guidance for research conceptualization, which inspires new work within the field. And also another critique from me, I guess from a lot of my professors as well. Most of the theories were developed back to the 80s, and we need much more temporary updates than what we have right now. And also theories most of the theories are developed based on middle-class white population. And there are limited theories adjusted to different cultural backgrounds, especially Asian immigrant populations. And also looking at theories could possibly reveal more commonalities and differences between different theories and between different empirical evidence. Yeah. So the next part is how I identified all my 12 articles, but I'm not going to go into like details about it just to save me some time. So my getting question here, next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. So my guiding question here is how were theories utilized in empirical studies that evaluated the impact of Chinese immigrant fathering on children's psychosocial adjustment? And next slide will show you the inclusion and exclusion criteria of mine, and I'm not going to go into details, but just to give you a quick idea about how I found the articles. So I limited them to peer-reviewed empirical articles written in English, published after 2010, about Chinese immigrant fathers specifically, and included at least one relational or psychosocial adjustment variables as child outcomes, sorry. Yeah. And yeah, and so here are some of the highlights of the results, and here's the real substance of my presentation today. Can you go slower? Yeah. Okay, so first off, only 75% of the articles have identified their serial article guidance. So the most commonly used one is family stress model, and the second one is family system theory. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with all those theories, but family stress model basically it suggests that increased family stress, for example, poverty, perceived discrimination, low SES, may lead to greater parental emotional distress, hence less positive parenting. And family system theory really highlights the interdependence nature of family dynamics, that family members have an ongoing relationship with each other, and they could have interactive effect on each other. Yeah. But as you could tell from those theories, they could be very broad, and basically a lot of things could be considered as a stress, right? And so it's kind of like difficult to conceptualize or operationalize in research, I would say. Yeah. And going to the method section, and I hope that I'm not blocking my own slide. So most of the studies are quantitative. I only found one article that is qualitative. And yeah, and oh, okay, I think I missed some point, but never mind. I'll go back to it. So yeah, and I think if you look at my title, you probably will be questioning, oh, why, if we're talking about theory, why are we talking about method right now? But actually, I think they're like tightly connected, and research methods are selected based on what concepts to measure and what are the available measurement tools or method. Therefore, research methods are indirectly related to the use of theories. And especially, I think qualitative research methods will be especially valuable in studying Chinese immigrant fathers, since it allows researchers to get more in-depth and detailed answers about the population. Yeah. And okay. And the next one is like how the study is conceptualized. Immigration, fatherhood, and father-child relationships and child outcomes. So 4 studies measured contextual impact, and that was mostly within the last 10 decades. And so the most widely measured variables are acculturation and discrimination stress. Yeah. And then the last point is that so all studies measure some positive or negative parenting practices, and unfortunately, all parent-child relationship variable were all conceptualized as negative. So it was all conceptualized as parent-child conflicts or hostility within childhood, or like parent-child relationships or so. And okay, so taking a step further, what are some of my thoughts about how do we advance the use of theories? So first of all, I would say conduct more Thank you. So we definitely need much more research attention to be given to fatherhood and fathers, fathering, and immigration population, I would say. Yeah. And secondly, for in terms of theories, like I mentioned before, we really need more culturally sensitive theories to immigration and father involvement. And okay. And also, I think follow by that, there need to be more measurements and methods that were tested based on immigrant populations or Asians in general. Yeah. And in terms of conceptualization, there are 4 points that I listed here. The first one that I think the previous presenters have mentioned, that co-parenting or couple relationship are a very important factor when we're considering fatherhood. And also, I think we need to consider more like multiple roles of men within families. They're not only men as individuals, they're also fathers, husband, son. And there's only one study that I found really looked at how does marital conflict or marital relationship affected father's involvement and fathering practice. Yeah. And also we need to consider within group differences. And there's a very different profile, like even within Chinese immigrant population, like there could be people who struggles with poverty, who lives social welfare, and there's a very high achieving population who probably enter the States or Canada as international students, had high paid jobs, and depends on where they came from. I think the culture are very different as well. So yeah, and then I think we should also consider immigration more comprehensively. It's definitely a very stressful process of being an immigrant and of immigration, but also I think it's much more than a stressor. Yeah. So also, like I said before, that I think we should use more strengths-focused lens in fatherhood research, because if we only conceptualize father-child relationship as hostility or as negative, as more like on the negative spectrum, then we kind of miss the resilience based in culture and like the uniqueness that culture probably have embedded. Yeah. So yeah, and in conclusion, the wide range of theory used reflects a lack of comprehensive framework in studying Chinese immigrant fathers, and my future work will focus on more comprehensive review of the literatures within the field. So I'm not only going to review the theory used, I'm also going to review like the methodologies and also some of the hypotheses and the findings. Yeah, so yeah, I guess I'll just keep it short and sweet here. If there's any questions, I could take maybe 1, 2. Thank you.